never thought a simple trip would change my life forever. When my uncle invited me to visit a jungle near our village, I imagined tall trees, wild animals, and maybe a little adventure. But I did not know that the jungle was not just a place of danger, it was a place of discovery. It was early morning when we started our journey. The sky was still pink, and the air felt fresh and cool. I carried a small backpack with water, biscuits, and a notebook. My uncle carried a walking stick and a small knife, just in case. As we walked closer to the jungle, the sounds of the village slowly disappeared. Instead, I began to hear birds chirping, leaves rustling, and insects buzzing. The jungle stood before us like a giant green wall. It looked mysterious and powerful. The moment we stepped inside, everything changed. The sunlight struggled to pass through the thick leaves above us. The ground was soft and covered with fallen leaves. I could smell the earth, wet and wild. My heart started beating faster. I felt excited, but also a little afraid. "Stay close to me," my uncle said softly. We walked deeper and deeper. The trees were so tall that I had to bend my neck to see their tops. Some trees had huge roots spreading like giant snakes across the ground. Colorful butterflies flew around us. I saw bright red flowers and strange mushrooms growing on tree trunks. Suddenly, we heard a loud sound from the bushes. I froze. My mind imagined a tiger jumping out at any moment. My uncle raised his hand, signaling me to stay quiet. We stood still for a few seconds that felt like hours. Then a deer ran out of the bushes and disappeared quickly between the trees. I took a deep breath. "It's just a deer," I whispered. My uncle smiled. "The jungle teaches you to control your fear." As we continued walking, we reached a small river. The water was clear and cool. Tiny fish swam between the rocks. We sat there to rest. I dipped my hands in the water and felt peaceful. For the first time, I forgot about my phone, my school, and all the stress of daily life. The jungle was alive. I noticed how everything worked together. The trees gave shade, the river gave water, the animals moved freely. There was no noise of cars, no smoke, no shouting, only nature. After resting, we decided to explore a little more. But soon, I realized something strange. The path we had followed was no longer visible. "Uncle," I said nervously, "I don't recognize this place." He looked around carefully. The trees all looked the same. The river was no longer in sight. We were lost. A wave of fear rushed through my body. My mouth went dry. I imagined us wandering for days without food or water. But my uncle remained calm. "Don't panic," he said. "The jungle tests your patience." He looked at the sun's position and examined the ground. He noticed broken branches and footprints we had left earlier. Slowly, he started walking in a direction. I followed him silently. After nearly an hour of walking, I began to feel tired. My legs hurt and my hope was fading. Just when I thought we would never find our way, I heard something familiar, the sound of flowing water. We rushed toward it and found the same small river where we had rested earlier. Relief washed over me. I almost laughed and cried at the same time. From there, we carefully followed the river until we finally reached the edge of the jungle. The sunlight felt brighter than ever before. When we stepped out, I turned back and looked at the jungle again. It no longer looked scary, it looked wise. That day, I learned something important. The jungle was not just about wild animals and danger. It was about balance, courage, and understanding nature. It taught me to stay calm in fear and to trust my instincts. Before leaving, my uncle said, "Remember, the jungle respects those who respect it." On our way home, I felt different, stronger, braver. That night, as I lay in bed, I could still hear the sounds of the jungle in my mind, the birds, the river, the wind. But instead of fear, I felt gratitude. Going to the jungle was not just an adventure, it was a lesson. And I knew that one day I would return again, not as someone afraid of the unknown, but as someone ready to learn from it. Because sometimes you must enter the wild to discover the strength inside you. A few weeks passed, but the jungle never left my mind.
Every night, I dreamed of the tall trees and the quiet river. I kept thinking about the moment we got lost. Instead of fear, I now felt curiosity. There was something about that place, something unfinished. One afternoon, I told my uncle, I want to go back. He looked at me carefully. "Why?" "I feel like the jungle is hiding something," I replied. He smiled slightly. "Then we shall see." The next morning, we prepared better this time. We carried extra water, some fruits, a rope, and a small compass. I felt more confident than before. The jungle was no longer a stranger. When we entered, it felt familiar, like visiting an old friend. The birds were singing again, and the air smelled fresh. But this time, we didn't stop at the river. We decided to go deeper than before. As we walked, I noticed something unusual. On the trunk of a large tree, there were strange markings carved into the bark. They didn't look natural. "Uncle, look at this," I said. He examined it closely. "These are not animal marks. Someone made these." My heart started beating faster. "Someone else comes here?" We followed the direction of the carvings. After walking for almost an hour, we saw something unbelievable. Hidden behind thick vines and bushes was an old wooden hut. It looked ancient and forgotten. The roof was partly broken, and the door hung loosely. It felt like a place lost in time. "Should we go inside?" I asked nervously. My uncle nodded. "Stay alert." We pushed the door open slowly. It creaked loudly. Inside, the hut was dusty and dark. Sunlight entered through cracks in the wall. There was an old wooden table and a small shelf. On the table, I saw something surprising, a notebook. I carefully picked it up. The pages were yellow and fragile. It looked very old. When I opened it, I saw handwritten notes. It was a diary. The writing belonged to someone named Arif. From the dates, it seemed the diary was written nearly 20 years ago. Arif had come to the jungle to study plants and animals. He loved nature deeply. But as I read further, the story became strange. He wrote about discovering a rare flower deep inside the jungle, a flower that bloomed only once every 10 years. He believed it had powerful medicinal properties. But on the last page, his writing looked hurried. "I think someone is following me. I must hide the discovery. If anyone finds this, follow the river north at sunrise. The flower grows where the light first touches the hill." The diary ended there. I looked at my uncle with wide eyes. "What happened to him?" My uncle shook his head. "We don't know." The jungle suddenly felt mysterious again. "Should we find the flower?" I asked. He thought for a moment. "If it truly exists, it must be protected." We decided to camp near the hut and wait for sunrise. That night, the jungle felt different. Every sound seemed louder. The wind moved through the trees like whispers. I couldn't sleep much. Before sunrise, we followed the river north, just like the diary said. The sky slowly turned orange. The jungle began to glow softly. After walking for nearly an hour, we saw a small hill. The first rays of sunlight touched its top. And there it was. A single glowing flower stood among the grass. Its petals were golden with hints of red. It looked unreal, like something from a dream. For a moment, we just stared at it in silence. "It's beautiful," I whispered. But my uncle gently held my shoulder. Beauty must sometimes remain untouched. We didn't pick it. Instead, we took a photo and carefully marked the location in our notebook. We decided that some secrets of nature should stay safe within nature. As we walked back, I felt proud. The jungle had trusted us with its secret. When we left that day, I understood something even deeper than before. The jungle was not just a place to explore. It was a place to protect. Arif may have disappeared, but his love for nature remained alive through his discovery. And now, it was our responsibility. The jungle had tested my fear before. This time, it tested my character. And I chose respect. After discovering the golden flower, I thought the jungle would finally be peaceful again. But I was wrong. A few days later, something unexpected happened. While I was at the village market, I overheard two men talking. I heard there's something valuable deep inside that jungle, one of them said. Yes, a rare plant. If we find it, we'll be rich, the other replied. My heart started pounding. How did they know? I quietly moved closer and realized one of them was holding a piece of paper. It looked like a torn page from a notebook. Suddenly, I remembered the old hut. Someone must have visited it after us. I ran home and told my uncle everything. His face became serious. If greedy people enter the jungle, he said, they won't protect it. They will destroy it. We decided to go back immediately. This time, the jungle did not feel calm. The air felt tense. Even the birds seemed quieter. As we walked deeper, we noticed broken branches and fresh footprints. They're here, my uncle whispered. We followed the footprints carefully until we heard loud voices ahead. Through the trees, I saw the two men from the market. They were near the small hill. One of them was holding a shovel. They're going to dig everything up, I said angrily. My uncle placed a hand on my shoulder. We must be smart. He had an idea. Instead of confronting them directly, we moved quietly to the other side of the hill. My uncle began making loud noises by hitting tree trunks with his stick. I started shaking bushes and throwing small stones. The jungle echoed with strange sounds. The men froze. What was that? One of them shouted. Then my uncle made a deep growling sound. I added to the fear by rustling leaves behind them. It's a wild animal, one man cried. Within seconds, they dropped the shovel and ran as fast as they could. We waited until their voices completely disappeared. Then we climbed the hill. The golden flower was still there, glowing peacefully in the sunlight. I felt relief, but also anger. Why are people so greedy? I asked. My uncle sighed. Some people see nature as money. Others see it as life. We knew the danger was not over. Those men might return with more people. We must inform the forest officer, my uncle said. The next day, we visited the local forest department and explained everything. At first, they were unsure, but when we showed them the photo in the diary, they became serious. Within a week, officials came to inspect the area. They confirmed that the flower was indeed rare and possibly very important for medicine. Soon, the jungle was declared a protected zone. Warning signs were placed at the entrance. Guards were assigned to monitor the area. The old hut was preserved as part of the jungle's history. Standing at the edge of the jungle, I felt proud again, but this time in a different way. The jungle had trusted us with its secret, and we had protected it. As the sun set behind the trees, golden light filled the sky, the same golden color as the rare flower. I realized something important. The real treasure of the jungle was not the flower. It was the lesson. Courage is not just about facing fear. It is about doing what is right, even when no one is watching. That night, I wrote in my own notebook. Some secrets are not meant to make us rich. They are meant to make us responsible. And I knew, deep inside, that the jungle would always be part of me. Because once you hear the whisper of the wild, you never truly forget it. Months passed after the jungle became a protected zone. Guards were stationed at the entrance, and only researchers were allowed inside with permission. The village people slowly began to understand the importance of preserving nature. The jungle was no longer just a mysterious place. It had become a treasure of pride for everyone. But for me, it was more than that. It was personal. One evening, As I sat outside watching the sunset, a forest officer came to our house. He carried a small envelope. "This is for you," he said with a smile. Inside the envelope was a letter. It was an invitation. A team of scientists was coming to study the rare golden flower, and they wanted me and my uncle to guide them. They had heard about how we protected the jungle. My heart filled with excitement. The next morning, we entered the jungle once again, but this time, not as explorers or protectors. We entered as guardians. The scientists carefully examined the flower without harming it. They collected tiny samples for research. One of them explained that the plant might help create new medicine in the future. As I listened, I thought about Arif, the man who had discovered the flower years ago. His dream had not disappeared. It had survived. Before leaving, the head scientist turned to me. "Young man," he said, "have you ever thought about becoming an environmental researcher?" The question surprised me. I had never thought about my future so clearly before. But at that moment, standing under the tall trees, breathing the fresh air, I knew my answer. "Yes," I said confidently. That night, I returned home with a new dream. Years passed. I studied hard in school. I read books about forests, plants, and wildlife. Whenever I felt tired, I remembered the jungle, the fear, the mystery, the courage. It gave me strength. Eventually, I became a forest conservation officer. The first place I officially worked, the same jungle. Standing there in my uniform, I felt emotional. The tall trees still stood proudly. The river still flowed peacefully. The golden flower still bloomed every 10 years, glowing like a hidden star. But something had changed. This time, I was not the boy who was afraid of getting lost. I was the man who helped others find their way. One day, while guiding a group of students, a small boy asked me, "Sir, were you ever scared of the jungle?" I smiled. "Yes," I replied, "but the jungle taught me that fear is not the enemy. Ignorance is." The boy looked at me with wide eyes, just like I once looked at my uncle. As the sun began to set, golden light touched the hill once again. The jungle whispered through the wind, and I understood its message. Nature does not belong to us. We belong to nature. Before leaving, I walked alone to the hill where the flower grew. I did not touch it. I simply stood there, grateful. I closed my eyes and listened. The birds, the river, the wind. The same sounds that once frightened me had now become my comfort. My uncle's words echoed in my heart. The jungle respects those who respect it. He was right. Going to the jungle was not just an adventure from my childhood. It was the beginning of my life's purpose. And I knew, as long as I lived, I would protect its secrets, its beauty, and its wisdom. Because some journeys do not end when you leave a place. They begin there.